Welcome to Cheshire Corners. I'm Sebastian Coco, and I'll be your host as we trip through the looking glass. Thanks for coming back to Shroom Studies, our mini-series all about magic mushrooms and everything mycology. If you want to see more mushroom-related content, make sure to like this video, leave a comment below, and subscribe if you haven't already. Today, we're with Old Dirty Julian, the first mycologist to isolate the iconic Old Dirty Penis Envy magic mushroom strain. Let's hear his story, but don't get psyched out.
Welcome to Cheshire Corners. I'm Old Dirty Julian. I isolated the Old Dirty Penis Envy probably 15, 20 years ago when I first got into growing mushrooms, and it really has just taken off about five years ago since Oakland High Phase pop-up tour after they had their first initial cup. So I first started getting into growing mushrooms when I was in high school, and I had pretty much learned from my friend who was doing Coke bottle techs and this, and I was so excited to listen to it about it every time I talked to him in class, and I bought some spores a long time ago, I think from Hawk's Eye, and he had mushrooms.com, and he had those spores going on forever, and yeah, I pretty much stuck with it. I've done spore swabs with it to try to maintain potency after isolating them. I got caught growing them in my mom's house in the closet, and she didn't believe I could do it, and they were just so prolific, and they did put out such good little canopies and yields after I had found several of the good little isolations I wanted to do when I was doing just brown rice flour techs, and I mean just steam sterilizing and not knowing the full entirety, but after moving out of my mom's house and all that, 10 years later, I picked it back up and really had my own space to go through and grow and expand. And now we just do a bunch of single spore isolations. We also grow cordyceps, militaris, and we breed them. I mean, we run different breeding programs with that. We're going to start working with full canopy, so that way we can really start pumping out the really fire genetics. So I've always been growing up and raised, and everybody was like, oh, that's Old Dirty Julian, because I've always loved singing Old Dirty Bastard songs. Just my nature and the way it is, just kind of old and playful. But isolating the whole strain itself, that's the one that I wanted to continue with Potency, because I've always wanted to take less rather than having to eat a whole bunch more. So that one appealed to me, and the penis envy part was just awesome, starting from really good, father genetics who were already established as the penis envy strain. That's why I kept the name as Old Dirty Penis Envy, because at the same time it's still a penis envy. It's an inbred with some multi-spores, swabs. I've even taken it to single spores, but kept it penis envy to penis envies. And it's just such an old genetic that it's really, you can get a lot of full traits out of it. A lot of the time it doesn't blob, but it will blob if you actually put it through the right conditions. It's just, it drinks water, it gets so big, and it's a good yielder. So finding out all those traits over the years of swabbing and single spore isolation, once I got to have a microscope, is really taken off to where I can actually make it more prolific kind of a strain. So, I mean, by the time I got a microscope, when I started playing with isolations like that, it was probably like 11, 12 years ago, and it was definitely a nice micro world to go through, and I don't think I've ever stopped using my microscope, and I just keep getting new ones since it's a dirty little habit now, but you really find some cool stuff underneath them. You could really get a bunch of full canopies of the penis envy. A lot of the times the penis envies didn't really get a whole lot. You'd have them kind of sparse, never really dropped a lot of spores, and I kind of everybody likes it where it's more sporeless. I kind of have always tried to keep it to where they don't, I mean, it's kind of hard to have them where they do drop spores, but I want to keep it on the verge of where they're somewhat dropping spores, and you can grab them, so that way you can continue the genetics research and continue breeding at that point. I like the sporeless, and there's so few, it's in far between, that once I got the microscope, it was easier to find and make those kinds of breeds. Inbreeds with the penis envies. I definitely think that it was, it helped the strain be more resilient and just kind of prolific. Through certain genetic breeding isolations, like if you go through and you're like these two mushrooms, and at first when I was at my mom's, it was just swab and swab, right? And just trying to initially get into the breeding process with mushrooms. Not knowing, not knowing, but not being capable of going through and picking all the isolations of the single spores, just having multiple ones and then isolating mycelium through that point. Now, after I've gotten better microscopes, I've gone through and we run through, pick out single spores and put them on different petri dishes to make it more of a breeding process, like truly how the penis envy was really coming through. I mean, you see when you go through your breeding projects and your multi-spores, you can have stronger mates of single spores. I would like to genetically identify through the mapping of what makes this spore more important right from the get-go, if that's a possible trait to find. And we do some genetic research. Like with the cordyceps, they've got 3 different mating types, so going into a different kind of realm, but you find which ones mate with other ones and which ones don't, where you document it, and you do your Punnett squares, where you can actually say, hey, this is going to be a fat-producing mushroom single spore isolate, and enable that to be, your father spore, or so to say, father spore, and then a mother spore, and try to, match your pairs and which ones produce more phenotypes that you're chasing. When I started getting into with the microscopes, it was more or less like, what can I do when I'm looking underneath them? Because first one I got was a compound microscope, so I was just looking at them, seeing what kind of colors you could really do with the spores, so what colors they really were up close, and at that point, trying to reach them and get them was definitely not the easiest with that compound. So once we figured out what kinds of microscopes we were looking at and what we needed, the spores were more than fruitful. We could pick a whole ton of them, just creating and documenting all of our recordings of our breedings and our pairs and what was more prolific for the genetic and phenotypes. And it was really kind of taken off from there. The crinkle of the caps and the little divots wasn't already there, but I think just finding the more prolific type of growing ones are what we wanted to look for. Yeah, most of the time whenever we were trying to breed them for potency, of course we wanted to have a good, nice little pinning set for good canopies and for the mushrooms to get really big. The actual feelings that we were going for, we only wanted to really have people eat about 1/2 gram to where, people who got sick off of eating mushrooms, their stomachs just couldn't digest it very often. They didn't have to take as much of a biomass. Which in every kind of cannabis kind of thing, you want the most strongest strain, and it's kind of all goes into it. I do like to psychedelically trip and eat a gram or 2, sometimes 3 if you're camping or whatever you're doing. I do like to trip, and I've eaten plenty that these mushrooms have opened my eyes to where, there's other things out there that it compels me to want to keep on going with them, since they've opened my eyes with them. But I feel potency was the main reason. A lot of times whenever I've eaten Coastal Moist Supers, sometimes I've gotten a trip to where I couldn't focus, and it's just like, you see so much going on, either your eyes are going all wavy, or, you see the walls melting, depending on how much you eat. I've gotten to the point where I think I've eaten a 60-gram wet penis envy blob, and I just saw a cartoon splat hit the ground, and it turned into somebody's face, before I was like, all right, I need to sit down, go lay down somewhere. Just ride it out. It was a good time, but some people aren't mentally prepared for that. So even then they think they are ready, but they're not quite understanding of what's going to happen or how they're trying to feel about it. It's kind of like a self-deprivation chamber. If you don't really, you could lose yourself, but not really lose yourself. You just could, be afraid more or less going through something like that. Oh yeah, my favorite that like one of the other strains that I got and I really kept with was the Kosovo Supers. Depending on the strain and each one of them, of your isolations and your spore swabs, it could be different in potency, right? You know, mushroom to mushroom, depending on how much your monoculture gets isolated. But it can get spoiled throughout your isolations, throughout petries and in the way that it's been treated, throughout and stored. So maintaining that before optimum condition before the senescence hits with that mycelium without trying to reinvigorate it really can matter. But I mean, there's a lot of other ones that I've tried, the Kosovo Supers, the Leucistic Golden Teachers. My partner Zeb, he's really good at growing pans. He's got pan bispores down pretty well. I've eaten handfuls of those, and some people can't even take them. So I don't know, it really just kind of depends on the mindset of the person of what kind of strain you're trying to eat. I really am interested in the aspects of what chemical compounds each one of them have, like baeocystine, norbaeocystine for Benolius and whatnot. Yeah, what it does onto the person. I'm open to trying it all and seeing, you know, exactly what each one will do throughout HPLC analysis and identification of what we're actually ingesting per mushroom. Because sometimes I even feel like some of them have like an MAOI growing in them somewhere along the way that we don't even know. So we're only reading like psilocin and psilocybin, but there's an MAOI in there that synergistically is working together to make it more potent. I feel like I was in the right place at the right time, and I've had so much of good hard work that I've put into it and kept it that, you know, other people have now tried to run with, do it, you know, the same kind of spore line I'm working with, and it's just like wild to see that it was right there, you know, and then come back 5 years later after just handing out some spores and you know, everybody realizes the screen name, and they're like, oh, the old dirty penis envies, you know, put it together, like, trying to stay true through the genetics of them, yet at the same time, not saying it's just like a Melmac or a Thrasher or nothing like that, but like, you know, it is a penis envy. You're not going to deviate from the point in saying that. Yeah, I think that soon to come, there's going to be old dirty penis envy crosses with Nutcracker, with, I mean, Toke, tons of them. It's just going to be, the sky's the limit. I think if you want to do something and get your name out there, make something worth keeping. You know, I'm not saying that if you have something that doesn't look cool or nothing like that, or, you know, if it looks cool and it's something special to you, keep it. You know, if you can keep it around somebody and down the line is going to say, this is special also, you know, and that's just kind of must. If you want to get your name out there, stick with it. You know, make friends, talk to people, and at least if they like it, they like it. If not, then you know you can work with it. You know, you can try to see what other people like, but I mean, it really, in the end, it's just make yourself happy. You know, ideally, whenever we were going with the old dirty penis envy, it was just, I had so many different types of little mutants and blobs, and I was trying to isolate all throughout it, you know, see whether we're isolating the mutants off the cakes, off the sides better, or were the actual mushrooms growing off the top better. All through the learning journey, is it really, you know, did I know? Could it have been my moisture off the cakes because this mushroom strain just really likes to drink? It really was a learning curve, but at least I stuck with it, and you know, it turned out you share it with some people and they really love it.